Hello.
Sorry, I had like 50 things running.
Bill makes four.
I don't know what's up with my computer today.
It decided today is a good day to suck.
Apparently, so live stream's definitely trustworthy, or should I spend a few minutes trying to
It
figure out
has
something to
not
make sure
faltered
my end?
me. It has not yet faltered me, and I have done up to about 6 hours worth of recording now.
Okay.
The only problem I have is usually I have to make things windowed in order to see stuff. That's been the only problem I have. So that's not going to be a
Okay.
problem. And I just linked it to YouTube, so when we're done, I can go back into Twitch TV and upload it to YouTube, and then download the MP3 and give you the MP3.
Alright, so something's weird with my headphones. Can you all hear me fine?
Yeah.
I hear it
Okay,
fine.
cool. Cool.
I actually had tweaked out my microphone. It was up to 100% again. It's like, no. I've heard what I sound like at 100%. It makes people's ears bleed. Gotta bring it down to about 50.
Yeah, I'm doing some testing here. Because as I said, as a backup, I'm going to try to record through Audacity.
Okay.
So how many
that's right,
people
you
do we
did
have
mention that.
recording now?
I am recording via a live stream, and Randy is going to try to do it via Audacity. And Bill would record too, but his computer is acting wonky, so we can't
Mind
trust
you,
Yeah.
we had two people recording when the first time we tried to review this, and both failed.
Yes, but now we're trying two totally different things and seeing how it works.
Yeah, I know, but that's why we now have three people recording. It's because we tried on two and it failed.
We would have three, except for some reason my computer's been throwing a fit about memory all day. I'm closing everything I can, and it's still not running properly.
All right.
Like for example, there was probably a delay when you called me before I picked up.
Yeah.
That was because my computer was closing Fraps, because as soon as I started Fraps, everything stopped. So, but it took until Fraps completely closed before I could even get the call.
Well,
The only reason I knew there was a call was my phone went off.
I had a dozen or a dozen and a half apps running, so
Yeah, I was doing a little live streaming beforehand, but it's just like, yep, just give it a few minutes. He's probably got games going.
all right. This is a test. Test 1, 2, 3. Matt, you respond.
Hello.
Bill
Hello.
and Flynn.
Hi.
All right, give me a moment. I'm going to play back and check audio levels.
Testing. Apparently I can set up something through Twitch TV with Skype as well. Not entirely sure how that works, but something, I guess.
All right, apparently I need to turn down the gain on my mic because, yeah. You
Yeah.
guys come out okay. I come through as ow, loud ow.
Yeah, usually I go to, let's see here, playback devices,
Mm-hmm.
recording, microphone, properties, and I go to levels and I have mine at like 55 right now.
Yeah, just give me a second.
Because, yeah, I made my own ears bleed when I tried looking at my recordings of online games and stuff later, and so like, oh,
Mine's at 53.
Jesus. Okay, bring it down to about 25. Must be a powerful microphone.
Can you all still hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
I hear you the
I'm
same.
going to,
Yeah. Just kind
I'm
of
going to try
microphones
a new recording here. Let me try this again. Okay, testing. 1, 2, 3. Matt,
Testing.
Bill,
Testing.
and Flynn.
I won't say testing.
Ah!
That's as long as I get a sound, as long as I get a sound sample for audio comparison. Give me a
You
second.
did.
And you did say testing, so there.
Irony.
Oh, I said it again. That's 3 hits. Oh.
I'm going to add Sophie to the call now.
All right. Still coming through too loud.
Weird. We could be at this all day, you know.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to try cutting it down to something obscenely low, see if you all can still hear me.
Yeah, for some reason Skype wants to listen to that.
Wait, no, let me see.
Skype
It's giving me a hard time, but I think I can still do it. There we go.
Call failed already.
Shouldn't be.
Randy actually has to click the calling her thing.
Oh, it's saying call.
Oh, there we go.
It's running. There we go. I think Sophie's with us.
Hello.
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 Oh, it's a bunch of guys, is it?
Yeah. We had one woman on the show once who was her first time watching Doctor Who. Apparently, the Snowman was a terrible episode to attempt to introduce someone to, and now I'm going to spend the next year trying to get her to watch the second episode.
Well, I would say if you're going to introduce any new audience to Doctor Who, introduce them to the new modern Doctor Who. Don't go with the old just yet. I love it, but it's outdated.
What was this newest Christmas special? From the way it was advertised, I tried to get some people to watch it, thinking it would be a good way for new people to jump on. Not the case. So now they're now they hate Doctor Who and are convinced that they're never going to want to watch it again. And once I move in with them, I can start in earnest trying to fix that.
Oh, well, that's too bad. I introduced a friend with the 11 hour. She loved it.
Yeah, I imagine that would.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
My
Can you
first
hear me?
episode was on Facebook. Yeah, I can hear you.
Hear you now, yeah.
Okay.
Mine was Rose, so I just started with the new series.
Mine was the one right after Rose. I can't remember what the episode was.
End of the
End
world.
of the world.
End of the World, that's right.
I think mine was Human Nature.
That's a good
Oh.
one.
Mine was The Ark.
Sounds familiar, but I can't place it.
1966 with William Hartnell, watched in
Yeah.
1983.
My dad's first episode was Daleks in Manhattan. Curiously enough, he kept watching, so...
Mhm.
Oh, I thought you were trying to one-up Randy on how early or something.
Oh no.
Because he pulled 1983. Your immediate response was my dad, and I was like, oh great, are you trying to go back?
No.
Actually, my dad apparently watched some Third Doctor way back in the day. He thought it was stupid and had no continuity.
Well, it's Doctor
His
Who.
loss.
It is stupid and has no continuity, but it's fun.
Yeah. My mom's favorite Doctor is First, curiously enough. And then my dad can only watch the new stuff. He can't stand any of the classic series.
Too slow for him?
I don't know, actually. I think he actually has a hard time getting past the effects. He seems to like McCoy alright, though, curiously enough.
Well, the effects were getting slightly better at that point, although they're also getting more
No,
colorful.
The effects in the McCoy era where we're in the 80s but think we can do CGI, so let's try.
Yeah.
That's what the effects in the McCoy era were.
80s cheese.
80s CGI was a good effort, but it was nowhere near spectacular.
See, well, my 80s CGI, it's all dependent on how it's used. Like, if it's used in a way where okay, Tron is the best example. Tron uses its CGI in a way that you can accept it looking fake because it's all on a computer. You know, in the movie itself, it makes sense that this stuff looks fake.
So Sylvester McCoy's CGI is like the effects of the Web Planet. If you're trying to take it seriously, that will break it.
Ooh,
But at that time, you didn't have that much stuff. They weren't as spoiled, and they had crap.
Right.
Crap quality on their
Right. I'm not knocking
video
it.
reception, so it was all
Okay.
corny.
Yeah.
Each time buying to it. Personally, I am deeply fascinated by how cheap the effects were back in the 20s and 30s and 40s and 60s and all of that. I love how they made the effects there.
20s, 30s. I absolutely love.
There is something to note, though, that, and this is really true of the Web Planet. We assume nowadays, because most movies and TV, their attempt is to look realistic. So all the effects are trying to look as realistic as possible. Because we're used to that, we assume that's what all media was like back in the day. That's not true.
That's basically what I'm saying. If you're trying to make it look real, the CGI they use for those will not work. You know, period. But for the time it was. I mean, I imagine it took hours upon hours to animate. You know.
5
the
seconds.
casket in Remembrance of the Daleks, for example, but it didn't come off looking real, and I imagine that wasn't entirely the intent.
But you know,
I don't
that's
remember
the
that
funny
casket
thing
being that
about
bad.
new Doctor Who, because that doesn't look real at all either. And then it's not like
Sometimes
they're trying to make it look real, but it looks spectacular. It looks fun. Those dinosaurs, they are not real. We know that. but
Actually,
it's
some of
fun.
the CG,
I would
depending
say
upon the
most-
season, is really good. Like, look at the werewolf episode.
Oh yeah.
Tooth and Claw.
Yeah,
That werewolf, I still say, is the best werewolf I've ever seen.
I would say
I
one of
wouldn't
the
go that far.
One of the real things that struck me about the David Tennant era was that I had heard about how Doctor Who was all cheap and cheesy effects, and then it came off as really strong with really good effects during those years.
But
Yeah, but you know,
what I
it's
was
not-
saying with Web Planet just is that it's not at all like if you were a viewer in the 60s, you would have known that was fake. You would have we assumed that for some reason audiences in the 60s were less smart than we are now, and we assumed they just couldn't see that the ants had 2 human legs. No, they could. It's
That was
just
more
that
just that they
didn't expect it.
couldn't manage to make the effect.
No,
At least on
it's that. Okay, if you go see, let's say if you go see The Lion King on Broadway, it's not a good show. I don't like it, but if you watch, you're not expecting it to look like real lions and real giraffes. It's the same deal with the Web Planet. They're not expecting it to look like real insects. They're expecting to see a spectacle, and that's really what it is. It's a spectacle.
That is funny about
with really
theater.
cool-looking effects.
You are never going to make it look realistic on theater, so you're just trying to get the emotion come across best possible.
Mhm.
As I said, I've once seen an entire show where that set were duct tape. They just used duct tape to make up the books and the furniture, and they just had a line of one said, "Yep, that's the bed." The duct tape says that's the bed, and you just buy it as an audience. You don't need more.
Of course, it's that for some reason we now expect TV and film to be more realistic than we used to. It used to be where it was just like theater. In theater, we never expect to look realistic.
That's largely because we're a lot more capable of making it look realistic.
Yeah, I know, and it's
We
kind of
weren't
like
as
we're
capable back in the day.
yeah. to an
Randy, you need
extent.
anything else for is your mic set, or you need any more tests or
It's as
anything?
good as it's going to be.
Okay.
I'm still louder than all y'all in this recording, but I'm not as loud as I was.
Okay.
I'm no longer my audio is no longer arcing off the meter.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just shout
And-
to keep up with you.
And to be fair, usually when Matt or I record, you come off as louder anyway. So
Yeah.
That's because I'm a loud person. I project.
yeah.
Well,
my
he's
computer's
also-
not smooth
Randy's
enough.
also
I'm ready
half
to boot
deaf.
Fraps back up and see if it works now.
And also, I believe
Just so
Randy's
we have
half
to start
deaf the
off.
last time I heard, so yeah.
I am a little deaf, mostly because of multiple ear infections I had when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I'm a little deaf because I spent the first half of the last decade with my music put on earbuds to the absolute maximum volume.
Oh God! Don't get me started on earbuds.
No, my
Rubbish.
hearing stems from the fact that I live in an area. I live in God's country, and they've been trying to get us to move out for years. With the freaking 20 to 30 below winters. I don't think I had a year in my childhood that I did not have an ear infection.
Wow. Well, I have perfect hearing. I'm a musician. I sing and play the piano, so I take good care of my ears.
I used to have very good hearing, but, you know.
Yeah. You also
I can still hear a TV about 3 rooms away.
My range of hearing is weird because I can hear noises that most people can't.
Mm-hmm.
I can hear slightly into the ultrasonic level.
Ever so slightly.
Oh my God, superpower.
Ever so slightly myself
It's
as well.
only slightly. I can hear whines from machines that everyone else is like, I can't hear anything.
Mm-hmm.
I know that.
I know sometimes there's also things like practice. For example, just because of my job, I'm a lot better at understanding people with thick accents than a lot of people are, and I don't even notice it.
I've never had problems with understanding people with thick accents, but from years of phone support, my problem is I get in a long call with somebody in a thick accent, I start doing their accent.
Do you have any trouble with my accent?
Oh no.
Although
I am resisting the urge to start speaking in that accent.
So an hour from now, Randy might be speaking with a different voice.
How many does actually
it's
know
a family
what accent I
trait
have?
genetic. We're kind of accentomorphs. My mother's the exact same way.
Actually, my sister's the same way. After we went down to South Carolina for a week. After a day, she was speaking like she had been there all her life.
Yep.
Oh, I actually started using Smeg after I watched about half of Red Dwarf in a week.
That's just being influenced by a show, Matt. But no, it's the same way. If I go out to Texas or California, I suddenly start speaking in one of those accents.
I just suck at accents. But I don't know if Bill knows who I am and where I'm from. Do you know where I'm from? The lovely thing about my accent is that nobody knows what it is.
I have some possibilities, but I couldn't tell you exactly.
I would just guess something Germanic, but...
Something what?
Something Germanic. I'm not exactly sure, though.
Germanic?
Yes, as in Germany or that region.
Oh, well, close. I live close to Germany. Very close. We're neighbors.
So, Austrian?
No.
Ah.
No, Austrian, actually, interestingly enough, I've known enough Germans and Austrian women that I could probably pinpoint that easier.
Well, I would think Belgium or the Netherlands.
No.
No, huh?
Oh. Flooring everybody so far.
I
have no guesses.
I also have the problem of any country that is not referenced a lot in a World War II textbook, I tend to mix up. I don't know if it's I don't know why, but
Well, Germany kind of occupied my entire country and we're planning to blow it up.
That doesn't really narrow it down.
yes, but in the textbooks, they refer to the whole region as just Scandinavia, and to the point where a preteen would think it was just one country.
Wait, wouldn't it be Poland or Czech Republic?
No, I gave a spoiler, I guess, if you're still guessing.
Well, it is rather small because they actually have
Denmark?
made the... Yes!
Alright.
I was close, just a little far south and a little west.
Yay! Denmark, but the history I was going to tell was that Germany had planned to blow it up, and they also made the map that it would take 5 atom bombs to just blow Denmark to smithereens. There would be no country anymore, and then they would have free passageway through the ocean to England. It wouldn't be in the way anymore, so they didn't have to sail through the channel. And that's what the reason why they wanted to blow Denmark up, and they were seriously considering it.
Jeez.
The only thing I
Oh,
the
sure,
only
they
thing I
could
really
get
know about
they could
Denmark.
get troops from Germany to England.
I imagine-
Not that
I
in the
imagine-
dark, but
I
hey.
imagine if they, I was gonna say, I imagine if they filled it up with atom bombs, they would go from looking like a Thal army to a Dalek army. But besides that,
The only thing I know about Denmark is that's where Lego originated. So
Yay, we have Legoland!
I actually knew that, but my brain automatically goes to Hamlet. So,
Yes,
No,
he was
Hamlet.
Prince of Denmark. And you know of Hans Christian Andersen too, I presume?
oh yes.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Denmark. I'm the only one here able to read his fairy tales in the original language.
yeah, just rub it in, why don't you?
Yeah,
So,
I
I don't get to do that much.
I mainly know Denmark for you and Eshball. So
Well, I just saw Penguins of Madagascar earlier today, and it made me happy. Skipper, for some reason, could never go back to Denmark.
all right, we ready to start
Yeah.
officially, guys?
Hopefully it won't be too long. Hopefully. People start coming home in an hour for me, so
Okay.
we can try to not be as tangential as we normally are.
Last time we were terribly tangential and had very little to say on the episode, so we'll see with more people if it's a little different.
Yeah.
Which is weird because this should be one of the better episodes to spark conversation, but
If
The problem was there was absolutely no conflict of opinion.
yeah, there was no
Oh.
disagreement. Of course, now we've got you and Randy sitting next to each other. So,
Oh, prepared for the spamming to commence.
if my Skype crashes, it's because I'm trying fraps again. Let's see.
Oh God.
We'll give
All
you
right.
one try on it.
Yeah.
5,
All right, we're working
4, 3, 2, thud.
All right, and we're ready to go, right?
Is it running?
Call. Interestingly, it might have stopped recording, but it's weird. But I'm more concerned about actually going forward than my own end because we got backup.
Audacity is go.
Okay.
And we've been streaming for a while now.
Okay. 3, 2. Hello, everyone, and welcome to an Unearthly podcast. This is myself, the Man in Black here. I'm here with Matt of madmadinc.wordpress.com, Ron-san with Flynn, and we've got a special guest today is Sophie Liv of the Agony Booth and SophieLiv.com.
By the way, for the stream, is it alright that I play the theme? The opening?
Sure.
Alrighty.
Will we hear it?
Well, I hear something.
Okay, that's enough now.
Patrick Troughton's face.
Are we done?
Fade to black.
Alright.
All right. Last week we discussed An Unearthly Child, the very beginning of Doctor Who, and we're continuing this week with the second Doctor. We're talking about the Mind Robber.
Alright, so where to begin?
Whoever's seen the episode most recently, want to do the summary?
Sure. I rewatched it today.
Go ahead, Flynn. I tried to do the summary on our failed attempt to record this, and that was like a week ago, so it's out of my mind now.
So
also
a brief summary then. So the Doctor, Jamie, and Zoe are visiting a volcano, which as volcanoes do erupt, and
Which is from the end of the last serial.
okay, starts to engulf the TARDIS with lava, and Jamie and Zoe are like, oh no, we need to get out of here, and the Doctor's like, oh no, but the only way out of here is by pressing the emergency switch button, but that's only for dangerous situations. And they say, yes, do it. So he presses the button, and they end up out of the universe, outside of time and space. And weird things happen, and they get, Jamie and Zoe leave the TARDIS and get captured by evil white robots, and it's really, really weird and surreal and all of that, and actually very hard to summarize. But they get back to the TARDIS, and everything's safe, everything's all right. But then the TARDIS explodes, and they end up in the land of fiction, which is a place ruled by fictional characters, and all sorts of stories are real, and all of that. They get trapped by a number of riddles and puzzles that the Doctor and Jamie and Zoe have to figure out. Eventually they meet with fictional characters such as Gulliver. They meet Rapunzel and a comic book character from Zoe's time, 22nd century. And then they go to the Citadel, where the master of the land in fiction is. And the master tells the Doctor that the Doctor must become the land of fiction. And their evil plan is to take over the world and bring all the people, fictionalize all the people, bring them into the land of fiction and take over the world. And he manages to capture the Doctor, and he and the Doctor start to engage in a battle of wits and start creating fictional characters and doing all these different battles, and it's awesome. And then Jamie and Zoe overload the computer, and they escape with the master of the land of fiction, and everything goes back to normal.
That's be the least linear summary we've done on this show.
Yeah, kinda.
But it's
And
also, at least linear.
here's the plot.
To be honest.
Being recited back, it's actually pretty silly.
Well, yeah, but nothing wrong with silly.
No, I'm just noting that fact.
Now, one of the things I wanted to point out is that first episode is one of the the whole thing I think is brilliant. Like, from start to finish, I think it's just a brilliant, brilliant episode.
You know that the majority of that episode was actually added at the last minute.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, and that's why I wanted to...
The Dominators was the serial before that. It was scheduled to run for 6 episodes, and in the middle of production, it got cut back to 5.
Right.
And this was supposed to be a 4-episode serial, so suddenly they had to add a 5th episode to it to make their number for the year.
Yes, that's what I wanted to say.
Then Mr. Hines got ill, so they had to somehow replace him.
By and large, that first episode is a bottle episode.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I really want... it's a brilliant episode, and obviously it was done at the last minute and all that, which makes it even more brilliant. One of the things that I think is really striking is the cliffhanger, which is one of the best cliffhangers the show has ever done. And part of the reason is the episode goes to great lengths. You're in this place, this dangerous place, outside of time and space. And it goes to great lengths to establish that what is outside is dangerous. And it implies... the Doctor keeps telling him, don't go outside, don't go outside. Of course, they inevitably go outside. And it's dangerous, and it's creepy, and all that. The implication, though, of them saying the outside is dangerous is that the inside, the TARDIS, is safe. So when they get back to the TARDIS at the end, you assume everything's safe, everything's good. And then the TARDIS explodes. It's like one of the most shocking sucker punch of a cliffhanger that they've ever done.
It's also interesting, because since you're specifically zeroing in on the part about the outside not being safe, that probably has to be the first time I've seen the Doctor be willing to use or accept that as an excuse not to leave the TARDIS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I can't think of another adventure in which he specifically did not want to go somewhere because the place he did not want to go was dangerous.
Well, it was kind of a running theme in some of the earlier episodes that the Doctor, before wanting to leave the TARDIS, would want to check everything out.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but often it would specifically be to fuck with Ian.
Yeah. That's true.
That's a wonderful way of putting it.
Well, just look at what happened during the first Dalek episode. He wanted to explore more, so he broke something.
I'm sorry, it's just the best
wanted to
image
check
of
everything out until
Ian talking to the first Doctor. Doctor, what are you doing? The Doctor, pissing you off.
Well, that's the Doctor in a nutshell, isn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, it's a really fascinating episode, and of course that I'm not exactly sure how they did the all-white look, but it's such a striking look for the episode. So good that they ended up... Yeah.
The all-white outside?
Mm-hmm. It's such a striking look that they didn't do before.
You know,
so good that...
or you mean the fact that they made, like, all the outfits and stuff white?
No,
well,
the
look of the nowhere itself. It's striking enough that they later reused it for Warrior's Gate, which is,
Lionsgate did it differently, though. The white room
They did it CSO.
was actually the sound studio they were in without any sets.
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Like I said, this was a bottle episode. The only thing they really had to pay for were the actors in the robot suits. Because the robots themselves were loaned from another science fiction production.
Right.
And they might have also made an extra white set of the TARDIS outside, but that was just for a quick.
Yeah, they had to have white versions of their clothing, and apparently they had to paint a TARDIS white.
Yeah.
But all in all, in comparison with normal production values for a show, that's still relatively low budget.
And of course, this was a really hectic season in terms of production. Like you mentioned that Dominators had it close out an episode early, so they had to quickly put this one in. They had to, I think, abort a couple serials, which resulted in the Invasion and War Games being as long as they were. It was a really crazy year. And there was a lot of changeovers in production, and it's the whole, one of the major reasons Patrick Troughton quit was just because it was so stressful.
Yeah,
you can see that in his performance.
That and the fact that he was sick of being on a 52-week year.
Oh, yeah. And it was actually on his suggestion that they cut down the episodes the following year.
Yep, and that continued throughout the rest of Doctor Who's life.
Pretty much. But
they never went back to the weekly after that.
But yeah, it's really interesting just how hectic this season is, and yet it's a really great season. I mean, and this is a fantastic episode, and it's also one of the most creative episodes Doctor Who's had. Especially if we're looking at this.
It's also a perfect use of making an episode on a low budget with whatever costumes happen to already be in the building.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they basically just raided the BBC drama historical department for costumes.
That's true of a lot of historicals. That's why they did historical. So one of the reasons they did historical so often is that the BBC is really, really, really good at period stuff. Science fiction stuff, not so much. Period, fantastic.
I don't know.
The problem is, though, that the period stuff didn't get as much ratings as science fiction stuff.
Exactly.
Because there's probably so much period stuff already to begin with.
In fact, the last true period piece that they did until the 80s was The Highlanders, which was Troughton's second episode.
But this is really a creative episode, though, and particularly if you look at it in context with what, I mean, Troughton's second season, which would be 5 episodes before this, was entirely Bases Under Siege. I think there was one episode that was not a monster. The plot wasn't a monster attacks a base and people die. It was.
Yeah, you're pretty much right.
Yeah, it was one of the least creative seasons
it
had.
Tomb of the Cybermen technically wasn't. That was people exploring a base and getting attacked.
Right.
Kind of the same plot.
That's different. Of course it is.
But it's really, that was just one of the least creative seasons the show's ever had. It's one of my least favorite seasons of Doctor Who, period. And so from them to go to that, then you have the Dominators, which is, I mean, it's also pretty standard as far as Doctor Who goes. And then you get this, and it's utterly bonkers from start to finish. It's completely different from anything they've done before, and almost anything they will ever do. It's one of the most starkly original pieces of Doctor Who that we've ever had.
On a related note to it being original, one of the things I've noticed watching Doctor Who is the episodes that draw me in and hold my attention the best aren't the ones where they go to various planets and things. It always seems to be when they're literally leaving reality, whether it's to another universe, to somewhere outside of the universe. Even what's his name? The Celestial Toymaker. Hope I'm remembering his name right, because I feel like I'm blanking. But either way, even that episode that a lot of people seem not to like, I found myself drawn into it. I don't know what it is about episodes that are in other realities or outside of reality. It just seems to capture the spirit of Doctor Who and what draws people in.
Well, I think it's really, really fascinating when anything does that, just bending reality and tells a high-concept story. Bending reality. Star Trek did it too sometimes, and those are some of the most memorable episodes. And in Doctor Who, it really lends itself very well to do that and still have fun with it. It doesn't become too serious, and I personally really like that when you can play with it like that and have morals. And in this episode, you play with fairy tales and fictionalized characters, and I also love that stuff. I really loved fairy tales, and having them interact with the fairy tales and go on adventure with them, that's great stuff. I love it.
Yeah, and my favorite bit, and it's such a short bit, but it's absolutely, not only is it my favorite bit of this episode by far, it's one of my favorite scenes in Doctor Who in all, is in the last episode, when the Doctor is connected to the computer, and he and the Master are basically fighting to save. He's trying to save Jamie and Zoe, and the Master's trying to capture them. And so he calls in the comic book guy. What was his name? Started with a K. Krakar or something like that. I don't know. But he comes in, and he comes in to save Jamie and Zoe. And then the Master writes in Cyrano de Bergerac, and then you start hearing period music play as they start fighting, and the Doctor calls in a musketeer, and then it's Blackbeard, and then it's Lancelot in full armor, and you get this shot of this knight in shining armor on a horse, and it's absolutely wonderful. It's
Carcass.
so brilliant. Carcass, yeah.
Carcass, yeah.
It's such a brilliant moment. And it's the music that makes it, though, because they play it with this old-sounding sword fight music, and it's really, really fun.
Yeah, that's the point where they really start rating the BBC properly.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. You can tell they're having fun, and
okay,
also
what do we got in wardrobe? We've got a knight. Okay, we've got Lancelot.
Yeah, and it's like, and of course my favorite bit in that bit is where substitute the musketeer or substitute Cyrano de Bergerac for Blackbeard the pirate. He starts fighting. Well, substitute the musketeer for Lancelot in full shining armor, and you get that shot. Then you see Blackbeard, and his face is just like, what the fuck?
you kind of get the impression where if it was a modern Doctor, they would be like, Control F, change all musketeer to Lancelot.
Yeah. That'd be kind of
and
the
funny thing is that
doing it with a screwdriver. We all know this.
And the funny thing is that I believe the Musketeer and Lancelot were actually credited as being the same guy in the end credits.
Yeah, it was probably just your Joe Average stunt guy.
And it's just like, I get to play 2 in 1?
Okay, go
Sweet!
the Lancelot costume now, and we'll continue.
You can't have had more than 2 lines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he didn't have that many lines, so it's just mostly just being a person that's there.
Mm-hmm.
And
of course, another great bit is where, Fraser Hines is sick for an episode. They need to write him out, so what do? They freeze him, have the Doctor rearrange his face, and then he's done it wrong.
Yeah.
A different actor for an episode and a half.
During that episode.
But somehow it's so delightful when the Doctor screws up.
Yeah. Oh no, I've done it wrong!
Really,
No.
Really, I just think the right touch would have been if Jamie had bitched about it a little bit more.
Oh,
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he ever complains about it. I feel like most companions would not have let the Doctor forget about that moment.
Oh,
He
he doesn't
didn't
know,
know.
but a good chunk of what...
Yeah, but the conversation
Zoe
is had
finds
right in
out.
front of him about him looking different.
Well, he is kind of pissed when he finds out, when Zoe comes and she stops and, oh no, not you two. Doctor!
Yeah,
and
but
they did
I
show
could have
him
seen
his
him being a
reflection.
little more passive-aggressive on that for a follow-up.
That would be
For example, any companion we've had since 2005 would have literally spent 30 minutes bitching. I'm not saying we need to go that far, but maybe a medium in between.
Can you
That is
imagine
a
it
good
was
5
Tegan
minutes.
that this has happened to? Oh man, Tegan would just not let up. But anyway.
Just something
Yeah.
it's like,
I think
don't worry, Jamie, we'll get out of here.
2005
Easy
was
for you to say, Doctor, you still have your own face. Something like that.
Yeah.
It could be funny if it happened to Rory. That way he is passive-aggressive. That delights me. The only one who just straight out hit the Doctor in the face, and it was lovely.
Oh. So,
Another thing, I mentioned this the last time we tried to record this, but that recording was, of course, lost.
It's the missing episode.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Well, this is like take 2.
But this is better because I'm here.
As it gets on, the Doctor becomes increasingly concerned about if he actually winds up following the story that the Master of the Land of Fiction is writing for him, that he will become fiction himself. And kind of the surrealness of that really hit me when I was watching this.
Mm-hmm. It's an existential bit, where it's kind of a bit of existential horror, and I'm
not talking about the existential horror, the fact that the Doctor himself is a fictional character, yet in the fiction of his own universe, he's afraid of becoming fiction within fiction. It just kind of hit me on a kind of an
definitely, and of course,
level there.
What's really I don't know if any of you guys read the article I linked to. It's one of my favorite. It's from obviously a blog I talk about a lot, TARDIS Ruditorum. It's one of my favorite entries he's written, and in that he goes for kind of a bizarre reading on the episode where he says he points out that concept and he says it's kind of it doesn't make a lot of sense when you actually think about it. If you think about the Doctor as a real person, there's no danger of a real person becoming fictional. The only thing that actually presents him as a danger is if he's already a fictional character. Thus, it's not a matter of becoming fiction, but losing realness. And so his argument is, and it's kind of like one of the Mad Cat's theories he kind of comes up with, is the Doctor, it's like, the idea is that the Doctor actually originates in the Land of Fiction, and thus the secret origin for the show presents itself, where the Doctor started out in the Land of Fiction, escaped to the real world, and now is in danger of coming back.
I don't know, because we do see Zoe and Jamie completely lose their free will and become trapped in a fictitious loop as a result of the actions of this place. So I would say the danger is pretty clear and present to someone who is not.
Well,
I think the first explanation sounds incredible convoluted. I think it's very simple. They are at this place, and if they do it wrong, they're going to be captured, they're going to be prisoners, and that's bad, so we want to escape. It doesn't need to be any more difficult than that.
Yeah. And as we mentioned, with Zoe and Jamie getting captured like they do, it's a very clear and present danger that if they do get captured, they're kind of going to be stuck there permanently.
Yep.
And it's actually, we don't even know how old the quote master is in this particular episode either.
Well,
he could have been.
I think we're supposed to get the impression that he'd been there for like
other
50
works of
or so
fiction
years.
that did.
Yeah. Like
And
they
if you look
give
it up, you can actually
One at
figure
a
out
time,
what
one at a
this person
time.
Okay, who goes?
He's essentially a 19th century author. Basically would be the equivalent of our like pulp fiction novels today. Only this was a boys' magazine. I'd actually have to look it up again to find out the guy's name.
I do think it was we're meant to think that the implication is he says he's from the 20s. The episode aired 1969. We're meant to think he's been there in that period of time. Like I think we're meant to look at that from a real world perspective.
What's interesting is that perspective works, except for the fact that there's a comic book character from the far-off future year of 2000 that this guy from the past knows about. So does that mean that the
Probably the
actually set the future and he knows about it because it's actually after the year 2000 and he's aged slower? Or is that just something that
maybe
just happened and no one thought to explain it?
Maybe it's just the computer. Because he is being controlled by a computer, and it's the computer that provides him with all the knowledge of these different works. Most likely that's what it is.
Maybe this place exists outside of time and space. So the timeline in our world doesn't matter there. There is no future, there's no past, it's all muddled in just one big time and space. It's all the same.
And she just hit on the head again.
True.
Woo!
If I may, I do want to read a passage from the blog post I mentioned, just because it's not supposed to make a whole lot of sense. It's just, I think it's kind of interesting.
Do you have direct permission from the author of that blog?
Well,
Don't, because it's plagiarism.
but I'm saying I'm reading it. Wait, I'm not saying this. No, it's not plagiarism if I say it's his. Then it's just a quote.
It's not even really a quote. If you're listening to the whole passage, it's still technically copyright violation involved.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Even if we.
Laws are kind of that way.
It's one of those areas that if he bothers to, he could sue.
Well, given that he already put his other blog in the public domain, I don't think it'd be that much of a problem. Just saying. Never mind.
Yeah.
Well, go read it, you all. I'm just saying, go read it. It's at Tardis Ruditorum. It's on his sidebar. It's right there. It's called We're All Stories in the End, The Mind Rubber. It's right there.
Okay.
Yes, you should read it. Read it.
All stories in the end.
No, but
Anyway,
interesting about the guys, he directly mentions a character by the name of Jack Harkaway in the show, and that was an actual fictional character from a magazine called Boys of England.
A real-life fictional character.
Whoa.
And that character was originally created in 1871 by a man by the name of Edwin J. Brett.
I don't know who he is.
No, he doesn't even have his own wiki entry. But, if you, like I said, if you equate him today, he would be one of those, like, C-grade writers that write, pulp novels that wouldn't even get him enough money to pay his rent, so to speak.
You'll only find him immediately in paperback.
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks. But I guess it's better than other writers.
It was the best some could do at the time, to be honest. So
Yeah, it's
God's name out
the
there.
low-grade writers. They're hoping to get the one book that, everybody will pick up and read for whatever reason that'll turn them into a bestseller.
Well, yeah, I don't think we have that much more better off today where people, what you call, publish themselves over the internet and doesn't get anything.
Yeah, I know.
Unless it's a slasher fanfic and you turn it into a book with spelling errors and millions.
That's my problem. I haven't been writing enough BDSM fan fiction.
No!
Writing that.
But I have a better chance than you because I'm a woman, so I should just write my sexual fantasies and get them out there.
Make it porn.
I'm going to be a millionaire.
You also have a better chance because if you just put your face on the cover, more people would buy it than anything any of us could possibly attempt to publicize.
That's a really sweet backhanded compliment. Thank you.
No, it's not backhanded. We're just saying that you could just slap your face on the cover and it would instantly sell.
Well, I'm going to try that then. I could use the money.
Yeah, I think about everybody here could use the money.
Yeah, that's why we're here.
Oh my god, I found a cosplay. I've been showing images of the episode via the live stream, and I just found somebody cosplaying as Zoe in this episode with one of the white robots.
Fun.
The white robots was something that I saw, and it's just like, why did you use white robots? I mean, I understand that the BBC got these on loan from a series called Out of the Unknown But as much as you said about the last series being redundant in its plot, this series of Doctor Who is really redundant in the fact that its villains are all robots.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, before the episode before this, as we've mentioned, is the Dominators, and the Dominators had robot servants called Quarks.
And then you have Cybermen in the next episode.
Yep,
Protons
we've got
after
the white
that.
robots here. We've got Cybermen in the next episode. Then I believe the next episode after that is the Crotons, who are not robots but look like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
But,
robots
you know,
claim that Doctor Who is science fiction, and people watching don't know that yet.
Well,
But you
speaking
know,
of...
the nice thing about robots is that you can kill them. That's always nice. You can just chop their head off and it's fine.
Yeah, well, the reason I bring it up on this one is the fact that the white robots only appear in the first and fifth episodes.
Mhm.
All of the goons in between are like wind-up soldiers.
Yeah. Which is...
Wind-up soldiers are like the putties, and the white robots are like the super putties.
Yeah. Speaking of science fiction, though, someone mentioned it. I think, and this is just me personally, I've never felt Doctor Who really worked, like, people call it sci-fi, but it's really not like a traditional sci-fi show. It's not like a Star Trek or a Just One: A Space Odyssey or something like that. And this is I think this episode's a good example of how Doctor Who is not really science fiction. I mean, it looks like sci-fi. It uses the elements of sci-fi, but it's in an aesthetic sense, in the same way that Star Wars is a fantasy story that uses robots and
It is
all that.
sci-fi. It's not hard sci-fi.
Well, one of the things that is talked about in that entry I mentioned, he actually references another. If you've ever heard of the About Time series. There are a series of books written by Cat Wood and Lawrence Miles that analyze the series and do a series of critical analyses. And in those books, they kind of define what they feel is a distinction between science fiction and fantasy. Science fiction, they say, is about a man's relationship with his tools, where fantasy is about a man's relationships with symbols and language. So something like Star Trek is all about man and their ships. It's all about the technology they use, and that's the primary goal. Especially, or 2001, which is the best example, is all about how the computer, the spaceships, all about man and his tools. Whereas something more
And explain
fantasy
the
is about...
prophets in DS9. That explain the prophets in DS9.
I have not seen...
They are aliens.
That's nice.
But I think when it comes to Doctor Who, its run has been so long and there's been so many different genres that it actually honestly depends on what era are you talking about here.
Yes.
And I do agree. I do think that Doctor Who mostly is a fantasy adventure, and I will even say when Stephen Moffat writes, it's not even that. It's fairy tales. He straight out writes fairy tales. But if you look at John Pertwee's run while he's stuck with Unit, then it becomes more sci-fi like, and Russell T Davies seems more like a science fiction writer than Stephen Moffat does.
It actually varies from serial to serial, even.
What I would argue is that Doctor Who isn't really... It doesn't belong solely to any genre. And I think the only genre...
Don't worry about a man's
if you wanted
relationship
to
with his
classify
TARDIS and screwdriver, right?
If you wanted to classify Doctor Who as any kind of genre, the only one you could is fantasy, just because fantasy is the broadest and least easily defined genre that's out there. Because
I would still say
I don't know. I pretty much just label it as fiction.
Yeah, I would label it as fiction. Fantasy.
Fantasy is interesting because
any episode that the TARDIS appears and is a sci-fi element anyway, so it's just as equivalent there.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Well, you call it science.
The TARDIS is not necessarily a science fiction machine.
See, when I think of fantasy, I think of something like Legend.
Spaceship. Time and spaceship.
But that doesn't mean it's that doesn't.
It's a piece of futuristic technology. There are fantasy elements to it, but ultimately it's a piece of technology which is really all you need to be sci-fi.
Well, but if we not essentially though, because when you actually look at how is the series defining the TARDIS? There's 3 essential definitions. One of which is basically it's a television set. That's the original definition. Is that he explains the TARDIS by comparing it to a television set. The modern explanation is that it's a living creature that happens to feel like some sort of ship. And the middle explanation is robots of death, which is really, really bizarre and fantastical and doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Where you use that box is here while also being there. He uses a science fiction term, dimensionally transcendental, but
that's
the actual
just him trying to define
definition
dimensionally transcendental with the 2 boxes. That's not really defining the TARDIS itself.
Well, I will still say the TARDIS mainly is this box that you step into and it transports you to another world.
Another
and
place
the Doctor is a person coming from another world, and you choose to call it science, and you choose to call it, but really you could as well has called it magic, and it would have made just as much sense.
And really,
can we just split the difference and call it science fantasy? Really?
Good idea.
That's generally what I prefer anyway.
Because really, I think it always has to use the aesthetics of sci-fi. Like, the Doctor will always describe something as science. He won't ever say this is just magic. He will say this is some high advanced form of science we know nothing about.
Except for that time that Sylvester McCoy said that.
How they move, it's too varied to really give it to like science fiction as a narrative is much different than what Doctor Who is. So really, I would still say fantasy. Just because fantasy is interesting that it could be J.R. Tolkien, but it could also be Purple Rose of Cairo, just to like a Woody Allen movie or something like that. It's so definitionless that I think it really applies. But really, if we want to be totally accurate, it's varying from serial to serial. I guess.
Because really, if you look at the Tom Baker era, you have some that are almost hard science fiction, and then you have some that are
Gothic fantasy
out there.
I'm not exactly sure, because I presume when you say Tom Baker, when you say hard sci-fi, you're referring to the Bidme years?
What I'm saying hard sci-fi is I'm not breaking it down by somebody's years. I'm talking from one serial to the next.
Right.
You've got something that's hard sci-fi, almost. I mean, the fact that the TARDIS cannot really be explained by modern physics kind of negates Doctor Who from actually becoming hard science fiction. But the rest of the technology that's used in that episode is plausible and possible.
Which episode?
Didn't say specifically, but there are a lot of very science fiction episodes in Doctor Who.
Yes.
And then you get things that are a good blend where, for example, Pyramids of Mars, yes, the gods existed, but they were aliens. That's what I see as the perfect balance that Doctor Who is excellent at creating.
Werewolves exist, but they're also an alien species.
Yeah, well, really, that's the central innovation of Doctor Who is that it combines genres. Where you combine...
Vampires are actually fish aliens.
You combine horror and sci-fi, or fantasy and sci-fi. You
fantasy
combine genres.
Or all 3 at once.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And of course, as you would expect to happen with this story, later writers will take the idea of the land of fiction and try to turn it into a sci-fi concept. Where I think there was one writer in the Virgin New Adventures who claimed these were made by a later monster, and that's just a boring way to look at it. I think
it was made by the Ragnarok.
It's supposed to have been made by the gods of Ragnarok.
Right, and
that's one of the reasons I hate the Doctor Who novel universe, is because a lot of these novels are taking 2 completely unrelated things and trying to tie them together.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's not even a matter of... I mean, it's just... When you take an idea like the land of fiction, where all manner of stories exist, and everything's real, all stories are real, and everything's like that, there's no way you can make that any more interesting than it already is. And just saying, "Oh, this is made by the gods of Ragnarok," it's just
that comes down to a really personal taste, because when I think of trying to explain that using science, even if it's science that's obviously science way above and beyond anything in the 21st century, but just the idea of trying to make a scientific explanation for simply how it functions, not how it's made, but how it would function with a scientific explanation, the thought of attempting to do that, I would ultimately fail, but the attempt would make my mouth water. And that's just different ways that different people view the world and what's interesting and what's not.
Was it Asimov that said that any technology sufficiently advanced would be indistinguishable from magic?
I don't think so.
Yeah, he did say that.
I think that was him.
I
also
feel like it was a different
wrote
name.
some really weird
It was either Asimov or Clark. It was one of those two.
Clark. it was Clark.
Asimov, they did say it. I do remember I read an article about it.
That was Clark. There we go. That's the name I was looking for. That was Clark's law. Well, apparently Clark has 3 laws. I did not know that. It was Clark's 3rd law.
Yeah, I sometimes get them confused because of the fact that they were contemporaries.
Asimov had the 3 laws of robotics.
Yeah.
They both also had 3 laws, therefore my brain gets confused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My brain, access, 3 laws, come up with wrong person.
Come up with Newton.
Please, try again later.
Yes, it is Clark's 3rd law. And I love his other ones. When a distinguished but elderly scientist states that something is possible, he is almost certainly right. When he states that something is impossible, he is very probably wrong.
You know what? I just saw that I've been watching X-Men, the animated series, the past couple of days, and I just saw that on an episode. And the following episode involved a battle outside of space and time. Of course, considering how much time travel is in that series, we might as well conclude that Bishop, Cable, and Apocalypse are all Time Lords in disguise anyway.
Either that or the Doctor lands in that universe, he's just basically hit with multiple repeated migraines as the timelines keep shifting on him.
Yeah.
And runs
That's
away
one of the reasons
screaming.
why I kind of agree with Linkara that the X-Men universe really ought to be separate from the Marvel one, just because there's so much going on with the time stream.
Yeah,
I
there
think
is so
he's
much
late in
content.
saying that. I've been thinking that for years.
Now, the problem is that they've got team members that keep bouncing in and out between other teams.
And other
Other streams of
Kind
time
of.
and other realities
Yeah.
and all this other random stuff is just, my brain, X-Men, why?
It's those.
Besides,
Why is the Fantastic Four any different from the X-Men? Why? It just doesn't
Fantastic
make
Four
any sense.
doesn't go traveling through time. They do alternate
Yeah,
dimensions,
but I
they do
mean,
not
with
travel
the
through time.
entire mutant bands and so on,
Yeah.
so you did get your powers from radiation instead of just being born with it, and therefore it's okay. Why?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's right, there's that argument too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of rubbish, ain't it? But that's another tangent.
but yeah, if you tried to
Yes.
separate X-Men from the Marvel Universe, you would wind up having to deal with Wolverine, who's apparently everywhere at once. But we're talking about Doctor Who.
Yeah, Wolverine in separate
Right.
universes.
So this episode,
Gene Hackman on Doctor Who, what do you say?
just another one. I think the last thing I really had to say about this was just that it's organized in a rather nice. I mean, it's organized rather well in that you have the first episode, which is entirely set in the outside universe. Your second episode is entirely based around riddles and puzzles, where it's all about solving these different riddles, and you have the scene with the children, which is delightful, and all of that. When is a door not a door? When it's ajar, and then you get a
I only
cliffhanger,
did
which
that
is which is the unicorn, which is a fictional creature coming to attack them. That leads into an entire episode of encounters with fictional characters.
I
That's when
cannot
you get-
watch that scene.
The jar or the unicorn?
The unicorn. I'm sorry. Every time I look at Hamish Wilson, the guy that replaced Fraser Hines in that episode, in that particular scene, he looks just like Colin Mockery. He does. I watched it 3 times, and it's just like, oh my god, it looks like a young Colin Mockery.
But he had hair.
Well,
It's
Anyway,
the facial expression he has. I have seen that expression 100 times on Whose Line Is It Anyway? It just kind of ruined the scene for me, in all honesty.
well,
Because it just distracted me.
anyway, but that scene then leads into episode 3, which entirely deals with encounters with fictional characters. Where that's where you get the brunt of your Gulliver scenes, where you get Rapunzel and Prakar something whatever for the first. No, wait, he's in the later episode. Never mind. But you get most of your fictional characters in that episode, and that's primarily what it's about. Then you get episode 4, which is a continuation of that, where you get whoever the comic book guy is. I forgot his name again.
Carcass.
You know, I need to remember that. Okay, dead body, Carcass. So. You get Carcass, and you get more of Gulliver and all of that, but it's also journeying to the Citadel. That's where the Doctor and Zoe make their way to the Citadel and finally meet the Master. Then episode 5 is entirely the final confrontation with the Master. It's organized in a very nice setting, and it's one of the best paced episodes of the 60s, partly because each episode is cut down 5 minutes. So even though it's 5 episodes, it runs the same length as a 4-episode story. That plus the organization I just mentioned makes it one of the best paced episodes of that decade. So that's really nice.
And it's funny that if you think about it, it's so nicely organized, and yet at the same time when you try to talk about the plot, it feels all kinds of scatterbrain.
Oh yeah.
It feels all kinds of chaotic.
But it's really that you have such a
It feels more like an intentional chaos than a unfollowable mishmash.
Right. I mean, well,
Still structured.
Mm-hmm. And really what it is that you have this great idea of this land of fiction, and really all it is the writer is doing an idea at a time and moving from one to another before you get bored with each idea. And that's why that one bit I love so much, that's so short, because it's just he's throwing this, you can do this, but he does it so quickly so that you don't get bored with it. It's a really well-paced, well-structured thing.
Yeah.
One thing about Carcass, and this is, looking on with the benefit of hindsight, is doesn't he seem more like he should have been from the 30s?
Yeah.
He's very Flash Gordon-y.
Yeah, actually.
Right.
That's interesting because the main comparison I've seen to him on online, like what's the name now? TARDIS data file. They make a point of reminding people this is not supposed to be based off of Judge Dredd. It didn't exist yet.
He didn't remind me at all of Judge Dredd. He reminded me of a villain from the Flash Gordon serials.
And again, I'm not experienced with those.
Of course,
so
what I think is great about I think the reason he's done to be from Zoe's time, I think really the reason there is just they're able to reverse the. Because they already did it twice, where the companions see a fictional monster and the Doctor goes, it's not real, and then it's not real. They do a switch here, where the Doctor doesn't know who that is. He can't say it's not real, because he doesn't know it's not real. It's Zoe that's able to say, no, that's not real, and then, just beats the shit out of him.
Oh, I love the fact that he pulls out his gun, and Zoe says what it is, and the Doctor's just like, oh, that couldn't exist, and the gun just pops out of it.
Yeah.
Because the Doctor's never used technology that couldn't exist before.
And mind you, this is a couple of years before he starts reversing the polarity of the neutron flow.
Yeah.
Which is the biggest nonsense sentence in science fiction history.
Actually,
and yet,
I kind of love that idea on a subtle level, because I kind of wonder if you reverse the polarity of the quarks within the neutron, what would happen?
What?
Like, I spent time thinking about that, and I was just like, if you take the quarks within the neutron and reverse the polarity of them, what would happen to the neutron flow? What would really happen to the neutron flow?
The thing is that neutrons don't flow.
They could if you have a beam. I mean, in Journey's End, there was a neutron beam, which obviously flowed from star to star, destroying them.
Which
Well,
again,
that was neutrinos, not neutrons. I
yeah,
apologize.
neutrinos are different from neutrons.
They are different, but the same. Any particle can flow.
so now we're discussing science and Doctor Who. This is fun.
Well, I'm just going to say, whatever people say about Americans not being educated, clearly they don't know what they're talking about.
Well, no. There's different levels of American, and we're Geek America.
Okay.
Geek America knows what we're talking about.
Well, as my little sister so wisely said, geeks are an entire other nation. We don't belong to the rest of the world.
I'll agree with that.
I'll agree to that one, yes.
Another thing I wanted to say about Carcass, and I find kind of delightful about him, is the fact that his costume looks like you know those like Halloween costumes of a superhero that'll have all the fake muscles. That's what it looks like. And at first, like when I first saw the episode, I was like, well, that's a bit naff. And then I saw it again, like that's probably intentional because he looks like a cartoon character.
Well,
those are cartoon muscles.
Yeah,
And that's actually kind of clever.
We actually did a lot of comment on the character of Carcass on the Lost recording. And we had some debate on, first of all, you realize what he's wearing is essentially an executioner's mask.
Mm.
Yeah.
Basically.
It's like an executioner. I think he had a cape, and yes, he had one of those fake muscle, fake bodybuilder outfits that you would be able to get for cheap at a store. And then I think just a pair of black pants, was it?
Black pants with a belt and a buckle.
Yeah. So he looked like
that's right. Didn't we talk about how that was probably the only original costume they had to make for this episode?
Yeah, he looked like a cross between an executioner and a pro wrestler. It was kind of weird.
Mention the Ultimate Warrior here.
Can we take a moment? Let's take 2 moments. One, to recognize that Bernard Horsfall, who played Gulliver in this story and was also played Time Lords in some other stories, passed away just a while ago. And so, yeah, that's sad. Great actor.
Considering the fact that he was playing a middle-aged character 50 years ago.
Yeah, his time would come eventually.
Looking at that, he was probably in his 80s or 90s, so, it's not as
but it's still sad to
in her.
While we're mentioning him, I like how we were mentioning about how the novels do ridiculous things. Apparently, novels have tried to claim that the Time Lord that he later played was appearing and pretending to be Gulliver in this episode, and
that's absolutely ludicrous.
I've read bad fan fiction that was more plausible than that.
He did play a Time Lord in the War Games, and then went on to play Chancellor Goth in The Deadly Assassin. That one theoretically could be the same person. That Time Lord was never credited with a name.
But while we're also mentioning Gulliver, can we take a moment to recognize how insanely clever his character is? The amount of work that had to go into pulling quotes from Gulliver to use
and making them fit into this episode. Yes,
I actually did mention that was rather brilliant writing last time.
Yeah, it was. We're talking about how if any of us would be crazy enough to sit there with a copy of Gulliver highlighting quotes from this episode, I think I would if I owned one and had the time.
Yeah.
But the fact, assuming all the claims are true that every line was fit exactly from the original, that is insanely awesome.
Yeah.
Give me a Word document and give me about a couple hours to watch every episode. I can test this theory.
Actually, yeah, with ebooks, it's not that hard. You can Control F on an ebook and match up every line of dialogue.
Yeah, but just the fact that they did this back in the 60s.
Yeah.
Just an insane amount of work.
But it's also, and you can see bits where, and I think what also helps is Bernard Horsfall in that he gives certain lines inflections that when you actually think in context of the original novel, they probably meant something different. But the way he delivers them gives it the context needed for the episode, and he makes it work.
It does.
Like there's a moment
oh my
where
God.
Did
I just agree with Flynn on something?
There's a moment in I think episode 4 where Jamie is with Gulliver and asks him, is there a way to escape? And Gulliver Bernard Horsfall turns from the window and says the beginning of this line, which is like, I have often considered the possibility.
He does a narrative. He actually talks a narrative aside.
Mm-hmm. And then his inflection changes to one of almost sadness. This was altogether impossible, and it fits the moment incredibly well and fits exactly what Janie is asking. And that's just an example of how his performance helps this character so well.
And might I also add that Gulliver is a monster of a tall man, the guy who played him.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking at a picture of him next to Jamie, and Jamie's usually a tall one of the three main characters, and Jamie's like up to his shoulder.
Well, how tall was Jamie actually? Because I was under the impression that all three main cast members were not that tall at that point.
No, Patrick Troughton was never a tall man. He's actually kind of small. He's McCoy height.
Yeah.
I kind of thought that.
Oh wow! I just realized if Lord of the Rings was made back then, he could have played Frodo. I mean, he could have played Bilbo. Sorry, he could have played Bilbo.
Interesting Bilbo. But I think Martin Freeman is the most perfect actor ever to play Bilbo. So
it's interesting that Sylvester McCoy was originally considered to play Bilbo Baggins in the original films.
He was on the short list.
Well, then he became a weed-smoking wizard instead. I guess that's fine.
Oh, he became Radagast. Radagast is awesome.
Yeah, he's high on mushrooms, and they even say it.
I still need to write my story explaining how the Seventh Doctor became Radagast.
Well, he crash-landed, and then he became high on
mushrooms. Bill, I will hit you. I will reach my hand through this laptop screen and hit you.
I think I came up with a pretty compelling story. It starts with the Ronnie doing experiments on rabbits to cause them to become giant, and goes on from there.
I will hit
that's
you.
That's actually kind of clever.
I will hurt you, Bill.
I kind of want to read that story.
The kind of story that gives me a headache.
Just because you read so many bad ones doesn't mean...
I read a lot of bad ones. I have to edit them.
Is it your job, or do you just do it for fun, or to torture yourself? Or?
It's partially... I wouldn't call it a job, because that would involve me getting paid, which I don't. Oh. But I am kind of studying to become an editor.
Oh.
So I do it for practice.
Yay!
And also we have friends that occasionally do fan fiction, so yeah.
Well, I'm one of them, so you're not going to hear anything from me. One day I'm going to release one of them and earn millions.
Oh gosh, that reminds me, I still haven't figured out which Doctor I'm going with for my Doctor Who Godzilla crossover. I'm still thinking on that one.
Are we done with
There's a lot of really good moments you could have with that.
Yeah.
We're nowhere near done. We're just massively tangented.
Have we said all we have to say about the episode, though?
I have one topic about the episode to bring up.
Okay.
And that's, first off, who here is the biggest Second Doctor fan? And Randy and Matt probably know what I'm talking about, because we discussed it last week when our technology failed us.
Lisa, what?
Who here is the biggest fan of the Second Doctor?
How many episodes of Second Doctor have you two actually seen?
Well, I've seen all of them released, and I gotta say, I love Patrick Troughton's.
I've only seen this one and Power of the Daleks myself.
Mm-hmm. I really think he's one of the better actors to ever portray the Doctor. I really think he has a bigger range. He is a lot more fun. He's a lot of fun when he played there, and I actually think he's one of the more skilled actors doing it. I like John Pertwee, but it's like John Pertwee can't ever only be John Pertwee, and Tom Baker can only ever be Tom Baker. And I've seen Troughton in some other things, and he has a wide range. He is such a skilled character actor, and he's so much fun.
I wouldn't say that about Tom Baker.
I don't know.
Tom Baker, when he was hired to play the Doctor, he was still a young actor, and he realized to maintain that character over such a long time, the best thing to do would be to be himself. The problem was he was that character for so long that
It became
whenever
him.
he would get cast afterwards, they wanted him to play that.
I would also just say Tom Baker has such a distinct look and such a distinct voice that
Yeah, but I imagine if his eyes aren't all bugged out and everything, he could probably come off as a different character.
I've seen him
I've
play
seen him
elves.
in one thing, which is the BBC once made all the Narnia books into miniseries,
Oh yeah.
and then they made the Silver Chair, and he played his. Yeah, and he was really good.
Wait, I saw the Silver Chair. What do you play?
I would agree though that I do think Troughton is one of the best actors, and I would probably put him, Davison, and Matt Smith as among the best actors we've had in the role so far. Chris
I
Eccleston
would too.
Eccleston was good.
I would not put Smith on that list.
Oh, I would.
Have you
Smith
seen
has
the-
moments,
I
but
haven't
the
seen
thing
Smith
is
in
that
anything else. I've only
Yeah,
seen
that's
him
my
with
problem. I
Back
have
Rider.
not really seen more. I haven't really seen Smith in another body of work.
Well, I'm just judging based on the performances themselves as the Doctor. I would say those are the best. That's
I would
merely
still disagree
within
on that.
that.
as for
But,
Matt Smith,
Matt
what I
Smith's
would
performance
recommend
as the
is
Doctor
look
has
at-
not really impressed me that much. But
What
I still
I
think
would
the fall down
recommend-
on that is the writing.
yes,
I would
as I was
say-
trying
I
to
would say
say,
Smith-
I think that the biggest problem with Matt Smith not folding out as the Doctor is the fact that we have Moffat writing, who has been probably one of the most mediocre head writers we've had in a really long time.
Let's not open
Oh,
up that can of
really?
worms, Matt.
Smith has performed the writing given to him, but when the writing given to him is play we and complain,
Yeah.
there's only so well you can perform that.
No,
I really think he is funny. First of all, he really have a comedic sense of timing, and it's really really funny. And then when he's supposed to be more dramatic or angry or something, he also plays that really well. I really think he has a great range, and I actually think he's an improvement over David Tennant, who is very abrupt in his mood changes, while Matt Smith flows a bit more in and out of it, a bit more naturally, I think. And he seems a bit more like
I've seen
alien
Tennant
with-
do subtle mood changes.
I think Tennant did that more to fit where the Doctor was in his life at that time. It made more sense. Eccleston and Tennant had a very interesting role with what was going on with the Doctor's mentality at the time they were playing him, that I think they both pulled it off extremely well, and that mood swings were a necessary part of it.
what I would say, what I would recommend to you guys is check out, and this is again me recommending TARDIS Retorm. He does a video blog on Tomb of the Cybermen, comparing Troughton's performance with Matt Smith, and he analyzes Smith's performance in The Doctor's Wife, and points out some of the subtleties that aren't as easy to grasp. I think if you look at that, it gives a very good explanation of why he's a good actor, and how he picks up performance cues from Patrick Troughton. There's a lot of influence there.
Matt Smith even said he did pick up a lot from Patrick Troughton, and I can see that. I could see that from the beginning. I think that's a good Doctor to pick things up for, because
he even picked the
I enjoy
outfits.
Patrick Troughton's performance so much. Right. Even when the story are a bit dull or something, like, he's always entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even the outfit is kind of stolen a little bit from Patrick Troughton too.
Yeah.
Bow ties and everything.
What I think the most interesting thing about the Moffat years, to me, are the fact that we have a lead actor that's visibly influenced by the Troughton years, and a head writer that's visibly influenced by the Davison years. There's an just a bit of a tension there that's somewhat interesting if you actually look for it. It's because there are things that Moffat does that definitely come across as trying to emulate Davison, but with how with how Smith plays it, it comes off more as an homage to Troughton.
Oh, and very interesting enough, the Davison years themselves were influenced by Troughton.
Yes.
Just a bit.
More subtly, but yes, they were.
Yeah, Tennant himself, not Tennant, Davison himself said that he was a big Troughton fan.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And actually
that's
met
also
the guy, I remember, shortly after becoming the Doctor, and he did his word of advice is don't play it for longer than 3 years.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then he also left because of scripts. But,
yeah.
oh shoot, I was going to say something. Dang it, what was it? Shoot, I lost it.
The reason why I asked that was this was kind of something that I think Randy and I agreed on pretty much was probably the biggest flaw with this episode, and it at least the impression I got from them, they've seen more Second Doctor than me, was that it's kind of recurring, is that sometimes the Doctor can be really heroic, and then you get moments like the first episode of this serial where the Doctor is literally, stop calling for help, there's two of you at the same time, I can't take it.
Actually, that was the second episode, and you
Beginning of the
and Randy
second.
were in agreement,
was-
whereas I've seen
well,
the
that was
invasion, I went,
literally-
no, that's not usual Troughton.
Well, I mean, no, that was the case of I can't help you both at the same time. He goes for Jamie first, and then goes to Zoe. It's not. I won't say you both. It's,
Yes, but there's like
can't
3
let you
minutes
both
there
up.
where he's sitting there with indecision, just dithering.
Yeah, it was more portrayed like, oh my god, I just can't handle, it wasn't so much as, I need to pick one and deal with it. It was just, so it seemed more like he was overwhelmed by the idea that he would have to rescue them both eventually.
I didn't get that, but I guess that's just me.
The first episode and a good chunk of the second, he's largely panicky and dithering, which does bother me to an extent.
But then again, wouldn't you be panicking if you're trapped outside of time and space?
I think that's probably intentional on his part.
That's not the first time the Doctor has been trapped outside of time and space, though.
Yes, it is.
Celestial Toymaker at the very least.
Oh,
Oh.
frick. No. Yeah.
Well, that wasn't exactly a blank slate of
that's only a
nothingness.
serial that I've seen. I'm sure there's more.
No, it's the only one, I think.
Now, there was one where they were trapped a second outside of time.
When was that?
That was somewhere in the Hartnell years.
Probably was that Edge Destruction?
What's that? I think that was the Space Museum.
Oh, you're
that's-
right. Yeah. Oh, that's
First
the
episode of
thing.
Space Museum,
Yeah, I
didn't
remember
know
that.
about
Yeah.
That was the
That
first
was
episode of it.
I have not seen it in years, so that was my recall from the 80s.
It's handled differently there, though.
Yeah.
But this is the first time they've been, at least since the Toymaker, although I'll admit I haven't seen it in forever. This is the first time since then that he has been out of time and space. Certainly the first time Troughton's Doctor has. So
And
I actually do
it's
think...
the last time they do that until, I think, what was it, Legopolis?
No, I think Warriors
Do you count the 3 Doctors? No, he was in time. He was outside of space, but he was in time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think...
And
wasn't
Warrior's
Warriors
Gate doesn't count because he's just at a null point between 2 universes.
Oh,
so.
that's right.
But it's a similar idea.
Likewise, Inferno doesn't count because that's just him going sideways in time.
Right. So,
Just a jump to the left.
Now, I do think Troughton's performance, in terms of the existing serials we have, it's at its best in Tomb of the Cybermen. Probably because it's a much younger and less stressed Troughton. Even though it's only been a year, it's
been a year since he started, so he's been acting long enough to get into the part.
It's funny. Mind Robber, I think, is the best existing episode we have, but it's not extremely good for showing people this is what Troughton's Doctor is like.
No.
Tomb of the Cybermen is much better at showing that.
But it's it's less of a good episode. I still enjoy it, mind you.
Though I actually think, funny enough, the episode I would use to introduce people to Troughton would be the 3 Doctors when he returns. Also, his chemistry with John Pertwee is just perfect.
It was interesting about his reunion performances in 3 Doctors, 5 Doctors, and 2 Doctors. Primarily 3 Doctors and 5 Doctors. He doesn't actually play the role as he plays it.
Yeah, I was under the impression in the 2 Doctors he played much more subdued, much closer to his actual run than he did in the other.
In 2 Doctors, he plays the 2nd Doctor, or he plays the Doctor. In 3 Doctors and 5 Doctors, he plays a much more cartoonish version of the role. That is more what people remember him as.
That's because the 3 Doctors, the Time Lords actually had to cross off the word Stooges and cover it with the word Doctors.
Yeah.
I was going to show off Patrick Troughton. My choice would be a couple of serials that unfortunately are no longer complete.
My choice would be the invasion.
No, the invasion technically is complete. They just reanimated part of it.
Yes.
But no, I would have preferred the Ice Warriors or the Enemy of the World.
Mm-hmm. I watched Power of the Daleks last night just to get more of a clue of the Troutman era, and I actually thought it was pretty good, except for the fact that it was completely not play by play, but it was very largely copied into Victory of the Daleks.
Yeah, I heard clips from it the other day, and yeah, it's just like, oh wow, I did not realize they did that.
It's like the plot structure pretty much entirely, except for the whole part about the Skittle Daleks.
I had a similar reaction when I watched Planet of Evil, which is a Tom Baker story, and realized it was almost that 42 was almost a plot for plot point remake.
Planet of Evil?
Mm-hmm. Planet of Evil. It's Fourth Doctor Sarah Jane.
Okay, I get that one confused with Face of Evil.
Yeah, I think I was doing the exact same thing too.
That's a good one too.
Yeah, I was getting a little back.
It's like, wait, what? Oh, right, yeah, okay.
But
yeah,
I like
kinda,
Planet of Evil much more. Like, to compare, Planet of Evil is one of my favorite stories, period, and 42 is one of my least favorite stories, period.
It's all a matter of opinion and how they set it up.
Victory and Power, yeah. Victory is almost, I can't stand Victory myself, so just another reason not to like it.
I like Victory. I like any Dalek episode.
Victory wasn't that bad in my opinion, but my opinion of it has just went down after hearing clips from Power of the Daleks.
Yeah. My opinion is it's derivative, it's overly sentimental, it's one of the... I really hate it when people say, oh, it's new series Doctor Who, it's going to have a Power of Love ending. That doesn't happen that often. It does happen here, and it's...
I feel like
it's funny that so few people catches the hint. How many have realized that Amy convincing the cyborg to come back with love is absolutely what happens in the finale when she talks to Rory, that he's not a robot but loves her. It's the same thing. It's a setup.
I think, are you the one I was talking about that mentioned that to me?
Maybe.
It must have been you. If it wasn't one of these guys, it was you then. Because I remember hearing that idea. I still think that they should have kept. Well, I don't know if I would say kept the same first half of the episode because considering how much of it was borrowed from Power. But if they took the second half of the episode and constructed it more in the way of like a Fifth Doctor serial and ran with it a different way, with the Daleks having a more complex scheme that really was actually a victory for them and not running off with their tail between their legs.
Yeah.
I think it would have been a better final result.
Yeah,
I think it would have been better if they didn't have
Well, I
this
think the
instructional
main objective of that episode was just to establish that the Dalek now have a way to reproduce. So no longer it's a status quo changing episode that before that you only had the single Daleks, and it was a big deal. Oh my God, there's still a Dalek alive again.
Yeah.
Now it's more like they can reproduce now. They are everywhere. The Doctor is back to square one, and I got a kick-ass post out of it. I have the Victory Daleks poster from the episode.
That poster.
Signed by Mark Gatiss, Tom Baker, and Ian McNeil.
Oh!
I'm not sure if you can see the signatures in your show, because I remember seeing the poster in pretty much every episode. But if you can see the signatures, I didn't notice it.
You can.
Okay.
And of course they say for Sophie and so on, because I met them. I have a photo to prove it. Mm-hmm. It was a lovely day. I loved it.
But yeah.
Speaking of posters, I now also have a Dalek poster in my room, but it's not actually from the show.
Aww.
If I can find it, link you guys.
I do not actually have any Doctor Who posters.
Neither do I.
Who posters.
I have a lot of source material books from the 80s and 90s, but no posters. Oh, and of course my library full of the Target novelizations.
Oh yeah, I have a whole bunch. I have a bunch of DVDs, VHSs, books. I have a lot of the Targets, half of the New Adventures, and some of the other books.
I only have the odd and end from the New Adventure series, because as I said, they did not impress me much.
Mm-hmm.
I just linked you guys in the chat to the one that I finally decided I wanted to get as a poster.
I also have some of the old, I'm not really sure what they are, but they're like, I think 12-inch figures was a series of 4. There's a Cyberman, a Centauran, and the Master from Deadly Assassin. And then I have a couple of the more recent toys.
I also got some action figures.
Unfortunately, I have not been really making any money since the series started.
No.
So I have not had a chance to collect any of the new collectibles. Otherwise, I would have a sonic screwdriver I'd carry with me all over the place. But
what I ended up doing for sonic screwdriver, I bought the flashlight models. I think I got 2 for $12. They're smaller and all they do is light up, but they're useful prop.
Well, I can't buy the stuff in Denmark, so it's when I'm in England I just have to buy something Doctor Who relates.
Well, can you buy it off of like the Amazon UK site and have it shipped to Denmark?
Well, I can, but it will cost in shipment.
Okay, right.
So
it's expensive. A lot
they are in Ireland, so they kind of have to fly it over here. And I'm going to England again this May. We are a whole British section from Agony Booth and around the net, video producers who I'm going to meet, because you guys always meet at MagFest, so we're kind of pissed. So we're going to meet at London.
I haven't been able to go to MagFest yet. I keep planning to, and every year something gets in the way of my plan.
Well, we are making our own plans now here in Europe. We are all going to meet up in England.
Well, here's what you do. You guys all get on a plane and come to MagFest.
Have you any idea how expensive that is? I actually checked, because a lot of people asked me the last time around. And for me to get to MagFest and back again would be the same as 3 months worth of house rent for me.
Oh, wow. That said, if you guys did come to MagFest, I would go down regardless. If it required me to get fired from a job, I would go down, because it would probably be a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Well, I hope someday. I really do, but it's so expensive, and I don't earn any money.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I just got a job, so I figured I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, we are kind of nose on MagFest ourselves, because we spend all our money dealing with GeekCon.
Our local convention.
I was going on another tangent. Does anybody else have anything on the mind robber before we go into final thoughts?
I think I'm good.
I think I covered the basics, and by the way, I'm playing a GIF right now for the stream.
Now, I brought this up before, and it's the scene at the end of episode 1 where the TARDIS breaks apart. I wouldn't really say explodes, because there's no actual explosion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It just kind of flies apart.
Makes sense. If the TARDIS exploded, they would probably be restarting the universe of Land of Fiction.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, they tend to use for footage that particular scene of the TARDIS console floating in blackness. They tend to reuse that in like almost every background or every flashback special that they've ever had, I swear.
Just about. Oh, matter of fact, there's also a fan picture of that too.
If you search Zoe's bum on Google.
Yes, I was going to say that was where I was going with that. Is they seem to have a long lingering shot on that just to show Wendy Padbury's bum. In that skin-tight suit she wears for most of her time as the Doctor's companion. I think she might have been the first fan service girl.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Well, that's always lovely when you go that direction. Stephen Moffat, you do that too all the time. It's kind of annoying. You don't need to make every single woman as sexy bitch femme fatale, whatever. I mean, I know one of you guys didn't like Stephen Moffat, but I actually really, really like him, except for how he consistently writes women. That's one aspect where Russell T Davies were actually better, because he has a much larger diversity in women. He could write fat women, he could write angry women, all the side characters. Moffat only writes one woman. It's the same woman. It's this special, sexy, oh, look at me, I'm as cool as the Doctor. Why do we need another woman as cool as the Doctor? We already have the Doctor. We need her to be relatable. Oh.
I think really the central difference between Russell T Davies and Moffat is that Russell T Davies wrote from a socially real perspective, where he was very concerned with characters and people and those kinds of situations. Moffat writes from a more detached, narratively complex position where he's less interested in character. Thus, you get a bunch of characters that act basically the same.
The problem is that shouldn't be the case when writing a main character.
He writes fairy tales, and I think he writes really good fairy tales, and I love Gothic.
I liked him better when he was writing horror.
Yeah, and I love, he loved Gothic fairy tales, though those are horror fairy tales, but fairy tales nonetheless. But the thing that feels to me is that he's done now. He had something he wanted to tell, an experience he wanted to give, and he has given it, and all he can do now is repeating himself.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I don't care for current Moffat right now, but the first season of Moffat, that was actually a pretty good season. It just seems that since then it's been,
I really liked season 7, but season 6 I couldn't stand. And
season 6 was bad. Flynn likes season 7, and I don't.
Seasons 5 and 6, to me, there's a lot of things I can point out things I really like about almost any episode in either of those seasons, but there are also things that I don't like about probably almost any episode in those seasons.
Season 6, I try mostly to forget because 90% of it's about River Song, and I absolutely despise River Song.
Yeah.
Well, she's the same character again. Season 5 is definitely my favorite season out of all new Doctor Who. Because sadly, with the other seasons with Russell T Davies, it felt like it always started very slow. Then there would be some really good stuff in the middle. And then it would end kind of anticlimactic and nonsensical.
I think Series 4 has probably been my favorite Doctor Who season so far.
Series 1 and 5 have been my favorites, without a doubt.
One is the one that I respect the most in terms of the way it was put together, but I think there's just enough things where the show was trying to find its footing where it can't quite take the place as best yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of overall, my favorite season is 18, I think.
Yeah, we're mostly talking the new one there, because we were comparing Moffat and Davis.
The only seasons of the old show that I've seen the entire season of are the ones with Ace in them, so I really can't comment as a whole yet. Otherwise, I've been hopping around from that
serial. I quite like his stuff.
I've seen almost everything from 1970 to 1987. Almost everything.
I'm missing a few Pertwees.
And then I've seen half of the 60s, and
For some reason, whenever it recycled, I always missed Pertwee's last season.
You're not missing much.
I would see the Green Death. I would usually see the first one with the Santarans. And then for some reason, I wouldn't see anything until Planet of the Spiders.
Yeah, you're really not missing much.
No.
There's
Death of
dinosaurs.
Dalek and Monster of Peladon are two of his worst stories.
I wasn't going to bring this up, but now that it's in the back of my head, it's bothering me, and it will be until I get an answer. We were talking about I think it was a Pertwee serial at one point, and I mentioned in our group chat, I was talking about the fact that it starts off with Sarah Jane dressed to go to a beach planet, literally for no reason other. Okay, there we go. I was like, just for no reason other than to have Sarah Jane dressed for the beach.
It's when he in the previous episode, Invasion of the Dinosaurs. It ends.
I have never seen.
it ends with the Doctor trying to convince Sarah to come travel with him, and he convinces her by saying, "Oh, we'll go to a beach" or something like that.
We'll go to
So that's what it is.
Piranha.
I actually we have to close this out really quickly.
I still would say that's the dialogue they used so that they could get Sarah Jane dressed for the beach at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah, pretty much.
I have to go now. So can we kind of...
wrap
Sure.
up time.
Final thought?
Yeah.
Start with Flynn?
All right, my thoughts. I love it. It's absolutely brilliant. One of my favorite episodes of all time. 5 out of 5.
Well, I too really love it, and I really think it's a brilliant episode to see what Patrick Troughton is all about in older Doctor Who, and if people are interested in older Doctor Who, it actually would be a pretty good way to start. Some flaws here and there, and of course it's outdated like all Doctor Who, but really enjoyable, so I would probably say a 4 out of 5.
Well, for the reference, since you mentioned good place to start and everything, it is the only second Doctor serial on Netflix, not counting the 3 Doctors.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to mention this earlier, but its predecessor, the Dominators, was, until they found Tomb of the Cybermen in '93, the Dominators was the first Troughton serial in order that they had intact. So pretty much it was, for anybody in the 80s, the introductory to Troughton was the Dominators and this.
My feeling on it, I'd give it about a 4. It was almost a perfect classic Who, but I still feel in my heart of hearts that the Invasion takes it. Which comes right after this.
Yeah.
So that leaves Bill and Randy.
Well, I think I'm going to give it slightly lower with about 3 3/4.
That's lower than you gave it last week, Randy.
What?
That's lower. Well, it's 0.05 lower than you gave it last week.
0.05?
You gave it a 3.8 last week.
Okay, I'll stick with the 3.8 then.
I think you gave the first episode a 3 and the rest a 4.
Mm-hmm. Sounds about right. I gave the first episode a 3 only because of the rust nature of it, I think. And because of the Doctor dithering.
Yeah, which is not a regular thing, but it does happen.
But the rest of it, yeah, it pretty much found its stride as being a good episode.
All right, and I'm going to give the whole thing a 4. I would say definitely a good serial overall. I would say the first episode probably just the way that it set the tone. I just really like that. It's not perfect and it doesn't do anything spectacular enough to earn a 5, but I would give the whole thing a 4. And with Flynn's rating, that actually puts this at like a 4.16 average between the 5 of us for this serial, which might be the highest we've had.
4.36.
Have we?
4.36. That's the overall rating out of 5 that we gave this.
Oh, you're saying for this? Did I calculate it wrong?
I just calculated it right now.
I gave it a 3.8.
4,
3.8 plus 4 plus 4 plus 5 plus 5.
I wasn't getting 4s and a 5.
There's 2 4s, 2 5s, and a 3.8.
I
Oh,
thought there was 3.
who gave it the other 5?
4 or 5.
Sophie, what did you give it?
I thought
I gave it 4.
That's what I
So,
thought.
Oh, you did
We
give
had
it a 4. I thought you gave
so
it a
there's
5.
3 4s,
Yeah, 3
1
4s,
5,
5,
1 3.8. Because I broke mine down by episode. I keep forgetting there's 5 episodes in this instead of 4.
4 plus 5 divided by 5 equals 4.16.
That's what Bill said.
Okay.
All right, so that was the Mind Robbers. Thanks again to Sophie for being our guest today. Next episode, we're going to be convening, hopefully, to talk about the 3 Doctors.
Woo!
That's another one of my favorites. Really love it.
It's also
Just
on
saying.
Netflix, which is why we're using
Yes.
it.
Yes,
Yeah.
easy to
Like
watch.
that.
So you
Yeah,
out there
yeah,
that's
probably.
listening, if you want to know what we're talking about as we're reviewing it, it's on Netflix.
And a point of interest about that, it was also my introduction to Classic Who. It was the first Classic Who serial that I managed to track down because of Netflix and watch.
And actually, SF Debris just made a brilliant review out of that one.
Yeah, I know. I got linked to it the other night by a friend of mine.
He's a great reviewer.
SF Debris, that sounds very familiar.
I thought about watching his stuff, and then I went to his site and saw how much was there and left.
Well, he is extremely productive. I have no idea how he does it, but he has 2 reviews out a week.
I can do it when I'm not cleaning snow like I have been for the last couple months.
Well, I have to go, guys, so...
All right. Are we done?
I guess we're
Yes,
done then.
We are.
All right. Just hit end on the record, and I'm exporting to MP3 now.
Okie dokie.
Who?